Okay, so let's talk about the march to mastery. So I realized this when Annie was learning to play piano. She would play, practice, play. Anybody play the piano in here? Anybody else play an instrument? Anybody ever seen an instrument? It's a rather musically dead crowd, right? Well, we don't do music. It's too emotional. I try and stay right in the numbers all the time. Even growing up, I just did spreadsheets. I lived on Excel. I loved Excel. So no music for me. So Annie's playing, and then all of a sudden you get to a place if you're learning that and you think, I don't want to do this anymore. Nothing's happening. She just said, it doesn't feel like me. I said, hey, that's because here's an understanding of the march to mastery. When you learn something new, it's a scientific word called mucking. Everybody knows what it feels like to muck. Yeah, it's what happens when you learn new stuff, right? You're just like mucking. It's like slogging through, right? After a while, if you hang with it, mucking will turn into mechanical. And you need to understand that 90 to 95% of the people, this is where they bail. Because they just won't endure that, right? I don't like the feeling of mucking. I don't like the feeling of mechanical. It's doing it the same way over and over again. I'm not going to do this. So this is where most people bail. But I said, if you hang through this, when the mechanical becomes automatic, something's going to show up that didn't show up before. You know what it is? You. See, when the mechanical becomes automatic, that's when you show up. I said that's when your personality infuses and comes out of your fingers. And that's the same no matter what. I don't care if you're talking about piano or a sport or your business. And that's when it becomes magical. That's when it becomes magical. Because your personality is now flowing out through, again, sport, business, hobby, it doesn't really matter. And if you stick with it long enough, you get to mastery. Here's the problem with mastery. It takes time. In fact, Gladwell, Outliers, 10,000 hours. So Gladwell talked about, how many read Outliers? Malcolm Gladwell. So he talked about the 10,000 hour rule. And what nobody knows, in fact, I didn't even know. So I grew up, I loved the Beatles growing up. How many loved the Beatles growing up? Okay. How many of you are not alive growing up? So you have to love the Beatles. Come on. Seriously, we don't know music, we don't like the Beatles, none of that stuff. My parents beat me and put me in a room and no music. Okay, so the Beatles were sent off to Germany and they would play through the night, sometimes 8 or 10 hours straight. So they were just playing other people's songs over and over and over again. How did they become great at writing amazing music? March to mastery. How is it that Western Pennsylvania has a lot of football players? So Joe Montana is a Western Pennsylvania guy. And Montana would say there's a point in the game where it slows down for him. In other words, everybody's going at regular speed, but for him it slows down. And so mastery is about when you're in the midst of a prospect meeting and the prospects are moving at regular speed, but it's slow. And you're able to see exactly where she is, where he is, what's going on in the moment. You're able to orchestrate the entire movement of that time. It's when you're doing a seminar, a public seminar, and you are able to see where every person is and literally not only dial up your own energy, but when you get to mastery, you can actually dial up the entire energy of the room. How is it that you move toward that, right? Because you've gotten to the place where it slows down. Everybody get that? That's the march to mastery. So the hard news is this is a longer process. The great news is very few people will follow. Because most advisors, I hate to say it, are cheap, stupid, and lazy. So if you just go, okay, well, he's really telling it like it is, yeah. Because that's what we're taught to do, right? It's okay. You can be cheap and get to the top. You can listen to everybody and do what everybody else does and get to here. And you can do it without a lot of hard work. Is that happening? Not happening. March to mastery. And you can really set yourself apart.
Want to accelerate your marketing to the best prospects? Click the first link in our description to download your free Affluent Marketing Scorecard. And don't forget to subscribe to the Scott Keffer YouTube channel for more videos released every week.